Hey everybody, welcome to the Matt Report, the number one WordPress business podcast on the planet, in the universe, and all that fun stuff. You want to know what's going on with WordPress businesses? I'm going to be here to tell you about it. MattReport.com/subscribe. Join the mailing list. Tell your friends, family, and any other colleagues that do things in WordPress businesses about the Matt Report. It's the number one way to support it. Today, I've got on the amazing Adam Clark. Adam, welcome to the program, sir.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
I purposely didn't ask you how to introduce you, like I normally do, CEO of this,
Right.
entrepreneur of that, founder of this, because you got more hats than I do. Bottle Rocket, founder of Bottle Rocket Creative, recently launched a podcast network, founder of Lift Themes. You've never been to a WordCamp, and oh, by the way, you've played drums for a Grammy-nominated band. So I don't even know.
And that's only part of it.
Right.
I'm only 5 years into the web industry. Before that, I had a whole career as a journalist. So.
So how do we explain what Adam does?
Adam has a lot of ideas and starts many things, but as is shown, frequently jumps the ship to other newer ideas. So.
And your primary business is it the agency work, the Bottle Rocket Creative?
Yeah, for the last 5 years, I've been in the web industry, and it's all been like freelance stuff through Bottle Rocket. That's been the main thing. More recently, with the launch of WP Theory, I'm trying to start productizing some things and kind of make steps toward that sort of business. But the meat of everything is still client work.
Yeah.
And,
I do want to get to the WP Theory stuff, but your day-to-day work with the agency, with the themes, now with the podcasting network, how did you sort of come about WordPress and get involved with all of these different things? Was it just lessons along the way? Did you set out saying WordPress is my goal? How did you get there?
I think I started my first blog in maybe 2003, somewhere around there. So early on in WordPress, and so that was my first introduction to WordPress, and I just used like the default Kubrick, whatever version of it was at that point. And but I wasn't in the web industry at that time. I didn't get into the industry like as a career until probably 2008 or 9. And at that point, I think what got me into it was discovering CSS and altering my WordPress theme. So I've been a user all that time. When I got into the industry, I still wasn't focused on WordPress or even focused on development. But probably, and I've gone through, I broke up with WordPress for a while and joined the Expression Engine camp, and then I kind of left that world after 3.0 was released, and I felt like, since then I felt like WordPress is just, month after month it gets better, and I can't imagine using anything else at this point. But probably in the last 6 to 8 months, really the last year, more realistically, I've decided that the most fun thing that I do is WordPress related stuff, and I want to try to focus on that more. And so the site isn't launched yet, but I've designed. I'm building a new site for Bottle Rocket that's very explicit that we are a WordPress design and development shop. So I kind of want to weed out everything that's not WordPress and just focus on it. And so these other product ideas are all related to WordPress as well. I just have a lot of fun with it, so I kind of want to make that the main thing.
Yeah, explain to us why did you break up with WordPress at that point, real quick, and why did you get into Expression Engine? Expression Engine's always on my radar. I actually subscribe to a few blogs, and I'm always checking in on it just to see where it's at. I'm always like, someday I'm going to do a project with this because I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But why did you make the leap and then come back?
I think when I did that, I build mostly very custom client sites. So it's every WordPress theme I build is, the main admin is probably recognizable, but it's so much more than just pages and posts, And before 3.0, doing that was a lot more complicated, custom fields and custom post types, and Expression Engine was built in a way that that stuff was super easy to do. And also Expression Engine was a smaller community, and I kind of felt like I could make a mark or something. WordPress felt just huge, and like it would be impossible to, Expression Engine was a bigger fish, small pond kind of situation, and I really liked it. And I worked with it for probably, that was my main thing for probably a couple of years, and then I kind of checked out WordPress again. This was post 3.0, and I was like, man, this has come a long way, and it's just been getting better and better since then. I don't, it's kind of fun to argue about, like guys I have friends who are just who hate on WordPress, and Expression Engine is the way to go, and the opposite. But I honestly can't. I mean, I haven't had a project come to me in the last 2 years that I didn't think not only couldn't be done with WordPress, but wasn't best suited to be done with WordPress. Maybe there are those that WordPress just wouldn't. I can't think of anything that I wouldn't do with WordPress at this point. Not any kind of site. So,
yeah, I mean that is true. Looking at Expression Engine, I mean, do you even still consider it something that folks could, say that, hey, I can run a business on WordPress, I could run a business on Expression Engine. I mean, do the two of them ever sync up with like the same like WordPress themes, Expression Engine themes, WordPress plugins, Expression Engine plugins, or add-ons, whatever they might call it? Is that a similar? Is there a similar industry like that inside the Expression Engine community?
I mean, it's been a while for me, so I don't know too much anymore. But at the time, yeah, there was. But I feel like Expression Engine was a lot more focused on the add-ons, the extensions, and the plugins, and that's where I was introduced to the idea of the premium plugin. It's very uncommon, I think, to find a free Expression Engine extension. So there's a whole ecosystem built around Expression Engine for plugins and extensions. They don't have themes because of the way the CMS works. It's really hard to sort of pre-package a theme and release it, and that's why I think Expression Engine has that and the fact that it's not free, I think is why it's not aimed at the same. At the time, it wasn't aimed at the same market as WordPress. I feel like now WordPress could take Expression Engine toe to toe, but at the time, Expression Engine definitely had a lot more features for building a very customized CMS, and it was a lot more complicated to do that in WordPress. And I don't know. You were asking about the ecosystem, and I don't know if that answered it.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It definitely or ensures that we've made the right choice, right? Picking WordPress.
In a way, I don't know, because with WordPress, you can do it's easy. I don't want to say that it's like there's no work to it, but anyone could pick up WordPress and kind of figure it out, I think. And that isn't the case with Expression Engine. I feel like Expression Engine has a higher learning curve, and because of the cost and the difficulty in getting set up and getting a site built, you're not going to have the sort of hobbyists that you have with WordPress.
This is a good segue into a question I used to ask a lot to a lot of the earlier guests of the show, was how do we deal with the $500 client, right? And in this audience, there are folks who are total newbies to WordPress. They're building a site. They kind of want to learn how other people are doing it. And then there are the agencies, the freelancers, people like that who are servicing clients, right? And one of the things is they're going in at way too low of a price. They're doing it super cheap because it is super accessible. There is a pretty low barrier to entry to WordPress. You can click install it and have a couple themes and go at it. Talk about your next venture into this new productized service with WP Theory. Explain the concept and explain why you're choosing the price that you're doing. How did you get there?
Yeah, well, so there's two parts to that. The regarding the $500 client thing, I think I've spent years, and I haven't been in the WordPress world. I've realized recently, I haven't really been part of the WordPress world. Like you said, I've never been to a WordCamp. I don't know that many WordPress developers. It's only been recently when I kind of got into the Genesis community that I've started to make friends with some WordPress people and follow those people on Twitter, and hopefully we'll go to my first WordCamp this summer. So kind of starting to do that. But before that, I wasn't really in the WordPress community. So I mean, I focused on being a front-end developer for agencies and designers. I had a background as a designer, and I felt like that offered me a bit of set me apart a little bit. And so I spent 4 years doing that, and in big front-end projects. We didn't, I would not have touched anything under, $5,000, for the last number of years. So the idea of a $500 client would have just been a complete waste of time, And
Not
but
even for the price, just you wouldn't be able to afford it.
yeah, it just wouldn't even, you know how it is running a business. I mean, and I'm not going to get off on a tangent with freelancing, but I spend more than a larger percentage of my time doing businessy stuff rather than actually coding and doing the work. I just had an exchange on Twitter. It's like it hits 5 o'clock, and I'm like, and all I've done today is business administrative stuff, and now I actually have to code something, like do the work. So um, there's no time to deal with like um, 1 or 2 hour projects, which would be that $500 thing. So that has been the focus for so long, but I think at the end of last year, man, I hit sort of this burnout period. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but just total burnout, like really, like I don't even know if I'm going to keep doing web work. And I realized I think that was because of just a lot of large projects back to back over the years, and I decided some of the most fun projects I've had are the smaller ones with quicker turnaround times, and I can work more in little sprints, and there's faster apparent value to the businesses. And so I started thinking, how can I transition BottleRocket to focus on smaller projects and smaller clients, and only work with fewer clients at a time rather than the typical agency model of a dozen different projects going on. And so that has now I am focusing on the smaller project, and that happened at the same time with kind of wanting to focus on WordPress. And so regarding WP Theory, what WP Theory is it's just a total experiment. I have no idea if it's gonna work, but it's an experiment in sort of productizing a service. I'm a developer, and I couldn't think of any way to productize a service. And so the quick thing about what it is, it's basically a website in a day kind of process. And so a business, I think there's a lot of value for the type of client it aims at. A business who has bought a theme and wants to customize it to their brand and have someone handle it. We'll customize the theme, upload the content, set them up with hosting. Basically, the site is live, and do it in a day. And I thought that was kind of a unique proposition. And I got that idea from a buddy of mine who does the same thing with iPhone apps. He has a company called Appidium, and we were talking, and he basically will design your iPhone app in a day, and very similar. And I was like, man, I wish that's awesome. I wish I could think of some way to do something in the development world like that. And we talked for a while, and the whole WordPress customization thing kind of hit me. As I have a lot of clients who are in that $1,000 price point that I just can't serve. I can't help them out, and I thought this would be an awesome way to try that. So,
have you run through a few beta customers, or actually sold it on the open market?
Yeah, I've it's been out for I launched it 2 weeks ago, I guess, and I've booked one and have a couple other potentials. So, and it's really interesting to actually book one, because suddenly with that first one you realize all the problems in the system, and things I need to fix. Because I want it to run like this sort of well-oiled machine, a very productized service. And just doing this first one, I'm realizing there are things I need to work on and streamline even more.
What's the biggest speed bump you hit on this first one that you said, oh boy, I got to change this for the next one?
I think it still involves, well, two things. One is there's still a lot of client communication. Before we even get to the day, and the day is designed to be heavily in contact with the client during that day, solely focused on them and their launch. But prior to the day, I hadn't really thought about like how much time I might spend in email exchanges, answering questions, kind of selling it and trying to get them to say, yes, let's do the day. And I realized, man, this is almost like similar to the amount of work and like talking to a client that is going to pay me $10,000 to build a site. So I've got to work on sort of streamlining that process a little more and cutting down on how much time I spend getting the potential client to actually say, yes, let's do it. Let's schedule it for next Thursday. And Yeah, because I could see how that's going to eat up a lot of time. So I don't know that's the answer to that yet, but I have some ideas. So
One of the first things that when I saw your announcement about the product or service was how the heck is he going to deal with the content? Because that's the number one
yeah,
thing that I know a lot of freelancers are struggling with. I mean, we talk about it all the time on the show. You're putting in your contract. That's like the first thing you talk about. You're going to have deliverables from the client, content. You've got your first one under your belt. Do they have the content ready to go?
yeah. Well, I haven't done the first one is scheduled.
Okay.
Hasn't happened yet, but we've gotten through the phase of and the first one actually is just a blog redesign. So the content isn't a problem really. The content's there. They weren't happy with their blog. It wasn't responsive in the way they wanted, and they wanted some design changes, and basically wanted to launch a new blog. But all the content is there for that blog, so I'm pretty much just going to be exporting and importing. I see this as a useful tool for redesign. If it's a redesign, then again we're dealing with a situation where we already have the copy. Might have to be massaged a little bit, but yeah, that point has been brought up before, and that is I guess the pre-sales process. Someone will call me and they'll say, or they'll fill out the form and say we're interested in doing this, and I'll schedule a call, and during that call I let them know in order for this to be successful, this is what we need. We're going to need all your content, going to need your images. This is in order to do this in a day and do it well. These are the things we need. So we can't schedule a day until they have that ready. So if they don't have it ready, it's just sort of come back when you're ready, and we'll do this. And if you do have it ready, then let's go. So it's not like a typical client project where we get started before they're ready. Like they have to have everything ready to go 8 a.m. that morning, or it's not going to happen. There's no time to be waiting around for stuff. So
Are you building those kinds of sort of clauses in a contract, or just making it very aware that if you're not ready at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, then we're moving on? And are you collecting payment up front, or
yeah,
how are you sort of managing that whole aspect of it?
I'm working on putting together a few documents right now. I thought maybe I could make it into a little ebook or something, but just sort of like a preparation for your big day or whatever, and just kind of helping clients figure out this is what you need to have in place, this is what we need to do. But yeah, as far as contracts go, it is payment up front through I have an online payment system through Harvest currently, and yeah, it's not so hardcore as it's like it's 8:05, they're not here, see ya, we'll reschedule for 3 months from now. No, it's not like that at all. And it's not. I don't mean to make it sound like it's this militaristic process that must be stuck to. It's really not that way at all. But it's just in order for me to schedule in the day, I have to have the stuff that we need, And what I'm working into the contract is, there's, the only way to kind of protect myself from that is, I'm not sure what the refund clause, sort of will be, but we're obviously scheduling these out, in advance, and there's going to have to be some sort of, if you cancel your day or we get to your day and you're not ready, I haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet. But I imagine it's not just going to be here's your money back, because I've booked that day when I could have booked other ones for that day, and I don't know what I don't know. Like I said, it's still new, it's an experiment, and I literally went from idea to launching the site in 1 week, like 6 days.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that you are experimenting and just sort of making that leap, because, and this I can only imagine because you've been in this industry for so long, that you understand where the more you sort of mull around the idea and throw that proverbial spaghetti against the wall and you sit there and you're hashing things out, then you never launch, and then you overthink it and you add too many features.
Oh yeah.
But I also like the fact that you're focused on sort of the day, like the day concept, because as many of us know with our clients is if there are no boundaries like that, like if you're not focused around the day or the sprint or the release cycle, then there's sort of like this, like, it's just up in the cloud somewhere, and there's no urgency for them. They're like, hey, I've only paid this guy or gal 25% deposit. I'll get to it when I get to it. And then on the other end, we're like, we got to get this going so I can get paid. So I like the fact that you are focused around that day and centering the whole process around the day, because it makes them think like, I have to be ready on this day or else.
Well, and two, I think it might be a little bit strange to most freelancers, and that's what I consider myself a freelancer. BottleRocket is, it started out with grand visions of being an agency. But then once I got a first few people involved, I realized that was not what I wanted to do. So it's just been me. But I run it like a business, and I think a lot of freelancers don't do that. Like, they don't run their shops like a business. And so for me, setting up these boundaries and saying, this is what you need, this is when the bills due, this is just the way it works, and there's no haggling here. This is just the way it works. Either we fit or we don't fit. And I don't think a lot of people do that. So in other words, this process is normal for me. It doesn't seem like anything out of the ordinary that I haven't been doing for years. I'm just shrinking it way down and trying to put some automation to it to make it as productized as possible.
Yeah, I believe it's smart. The $1,000 is a great mark, especially if you're an agency. It's almost like you could take a step back and do this and then grow to an agency, because a typical agency, at least from my experience and from what we do, is we need a minimum daily rate to invoice or to bill, so that we can pay people in the agency. A typical thing is a minimum agency is looking to bill $1,000 a day anyway. Right. So if you can get it done in a day, and then as you get more efficient at it and the process gets a little bit more streamlined, you can become more profitable. I want to talk about sort of the grand agency vision and then why you backed off. You mentioned before that you sort of got burned out to the point where you almost said, forget this whole web stuff. Forget this thing where everyone says... I'm going
to be a farmer.
Yeah. Forget this thing that everyone says you're going to be a millionaire doing. I'm done with it. What was the sort of the point or the wall that you hit that said, you know what, this is just too much for me. I might just pull out?
It's really hard to say. I've never been one to like experience, not to get all Dr. Phil on the show today, but I've never been like a big one to experience, like deep depression or whatever, and I don't know what that even means, or but something happened and I just kind of hit a low point, like just total burnout, depressed, get up every day and like had no interest in doing the work I had to do. I completely lost all interest in it. And I think it's because I just been going for 4.5 years now, and never stopping, every year thinking, okay, I'll tell my wife, next year's the year we'll be able to do vacations and stuff. I just had to kind of push through this year, but we'll be able to do it next year. And then the next year say the same thing, and just working all the time. And like I said, I mostly focused on big, large projects that took months to complete. I was just a part of a larger, there's the marketing team and then the engineering team, and, conference calls all the time. And, these would be, $20,000, $30,000, or these would be projects where just the front end budget, which is what I would do, would be $20,000 or $30,000. So big projects. And I just got and I was doing multiple at a time. Like I would have 5 or 6 clients going at one time. And I just hit a point where I was just like, I don't know. I just, something snapped. I was like, this is just too much work. I'm stressed out all the time. I'm just so stressed out all the time. And work never ends. And I felt like I need to change something, and either it was go get a job or really change how I work with BottleRocket. And I decided to kind of focus on smaller clients, faster projects, smaller sprints, quicker billing, so all sorts of things. And so currently I'm experimenting with the one client at a time model, just one at a time, and that has been absolutely tremendous for stress. It's so awesome to be able to just sort of focus on one client at a time. It's not truly, I still have other sales calls and meetings going on and businessy stuff to be doing, but not hitting a point in the afternoon and realizing I've got 4 different complex front-end builds I need to be working on right now is really nice to not
Yeah.
be doing that anymore.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, there are folks that are out there. Even I'm guilty of it to an extent of looking at sort of the 10-ups, the web devs,
Hmm.
the Velo Medias of the world, and looking at them and saying, how are they growing so fast? Oh, it's because they're going after these real big publishing clients or
Hmm.
Fortune 50 clients, that kind of thing. And you're like, I'd like to get there. But then you think about the dealings of the corporate world, right? And we've had our taste of it, and I know it's 10 times more painful because they are so much more demanding, and then the payment structure is even worse than the small client because it has to get
Hmm.
approved, it has to go out in quarters,
Yeah.
and then there's the all of a sudden a budget gets cut back in the next quarter, and they're like, well, we're going to have to delay payment, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to wait 120 days for you to pay.
Yeah. And that's part of it too, is like I don't do that. I mean, my payment is due when I say it's due, and if the client can't agree with that payment schedule, then they're best working with someone else, And it took me a long time to stop being afraid. Honestly, I'm still afraid of sending clients away. There's for some reason there's this fear that it's all going to dry up next month and people are going to find out that I'm just this big faker and I don't know what I'm doing and no one's going to want to work with me and I'm not going to have any money. So it's really hard to say no to clients, but um, that's been one of the biggest things that I've had to learn how to do is to say no, and especially if the project isn't a good fit,
Hmm.
and payment schedule, all that's part of it. I don't do net 60 or net 30. My final payment is due when I deliver the work, and if that can't happen, then there are other people out there I'm sure that will do net 30 and net 60 and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So just not me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and that has been sort of the same thing for my last year of running the agency is moving to that model and saying, look, and all the conversations happen up front of payment.
Yeah.
Here's how we work, and here's how I get paid.
Yeah.
I know it's a cold, hard sort of discussion to have right off the bat, and we're all warm and fuzzy about your next project, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, but I need to get paid because it's a cash flow business,
Yeah.
and there's people that need to eat, including me. And
Yeah.
there's
I'm
just
not a bank. We're not banks. We
exactly,
don't finance things.
yeah,
And sometimes I tell clients, well, actually, I don't think I've ever actually explicitly said it in this way because I think it'd be a little harsh, but it's like if I went to the grocery store and got a gallon of milk and took it to the counter and said, you'll be receiving your check in 60 days, they'd be like, well, you can come back then and buy the milk.
right, right,
It's like in our industry, for some reason, people think this is acceptable, and it's
right,
just not acceptable.
right,
And but at the same time, that limits the type of clients I can work with because if I want to work that way, I'm not going to be able to do the big agency stuff anymore
yeah,
because they just can't do that. And I'm fine with that. I've been loving, focusing on the smaller clients. Part of it too is like just the appreciation factor. When I'm working with a big agency, there's no sort of wow. I mean, I could present the most amazing, responsive, crazy, front end, and they're just like, cool, good, that's what we're looking for. And I'll work for a small business, a project that might take 1 to 2 weeks and be $3,000 to $6,000, and I'll show them their website, and they're just blown away. They're like, "This is so amazing," and there's nothing that amazing really to it, but that affects like how I appreciate my work. I just feel like I can offer those guys a lot more value. I don't know. It's I find
no,
myself enjoying my work more.
yeah, no, I totally get it. One of the things that we're doing is relaunching our own agency site, and that's one of the questions that our design team is asking all of us, the team, is why do we do what we do? It's not just for a job, certainly not, because it just we wouldn't be motivated to do it every day. But it's about delivering this product or building something for someone that doesn't have the ability to do it, and when they
Yeah.
see it, and it makes an impact on either their organization or their bottom line to their business, or they can actually publish content that they never knew that they could do before, and they're just like, this is awesome. That's the best feeling, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's going to be better than any other Fortune 50 contract that you land that you're locked into, and then you're flying back and forth East Coast, West Coast all the time.
Well, and the freedom, I feel like the main reason I work for myself is because I want freedom. That's what it's all about, is the freedom and control over my own schedule and life. And working in smaller sprints, when you focus on one client at a time, a project that would have taken 3 months now takes 3 weeks, because that's the only thing you're focused on. And being able to do projects like that where, because I found that too, like the first phase of a project, the first 20%, the problem-solving phase of the project, I was super excited. And then, you get into the middle, you get toward the end, and I'm just like, oh, I just want this thing to be over, And also working this way made me think, that's not good for my clients if I'm feeling that way. I'm giving them a lot more value, because if we do a project in 3 weeks, I'm pretty much guaranteed to be able to be excited about it that whole time,
Right.
And so they're going to get more out of me. It's a better, it's an experiment too. I don't know how it'll work out, because it's tough when people call and you're like, I can't do anything for 9 more weeks. I'm booked out for 2 months. Normally I would say yes and fit it in, but I just can't. It's really, there's nervousness there about like, are they going to come back?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, I think that if you're putting, telling a good story and presenting yourself in a way that they're going to want to stick around, sometimes, I mean, more often than not, they look at that and they say, okay, you're the real deal. I guess I can wait for you to engage with us or whatever.
Yeah.
The experience that you had on the larger projects, you mentioned a lot about sprints and stuff like that. Were you practicing Agile in the larger agency setting, and then you kind of, trickle down effect with the smaller clients, like doing sprints and Agile design development, things like that?
Not really. Like what would happen is, like I said, I would have a 5 or 6 projects going at a time. So any given week is littered with meetings, sales calls, potential business calls, all that sort of stuff. Then I fit in between that, the 4 or 5 projects that I'm working on. So any given week, I might only get a couple hours on one project.
Right.
And so I'm constantly, my mind is fragmented. It takes me a while to get back into the project when I come back to it and figure out where I was and what I was doing, and it's just a hard way to work, And
I totally agree. So hopefully your wife's not listening, but so yeah, you've taken the step back. You've kind of focused down onto the smaller clients, one client at a time. You're trying to productize this whole service thing and sort of streamline it for your efficiency, your stress level, and for running a sustainable business.
Yeah.
But now you have the theme shop.
Yeah.
How are you squeezing that in to your business workflow, and how's that going for you?
The theme shop came about before I made all these changes.
Okay.
Again, like for 5 years now, I've had an idea for, well, it's not really a new idea, but I wanted to either build WordPress themes for churches or build a SaaS type of hosted solution for churches, because I've done a lot of work with churches and nonprofits, and I feel like I have a really good understanding of what they need. And I've wanted to do it for years, but I could never quite get it off the ground. I'd get a certain percentage of the way into like a business idea, and I just couldn't. I had to focus on like paying work, client work, and it'd get back burner. But every year I would come around to this idea and think, this would be valuable out there. And so last year I finally decided, you know what? I'm just gonna make the themes. I can't quite get the SaaS off the ground on my own. I can do a theme on my own, so I'm just gonna make them. And if no one buys them, fine. But at least I won't keep coming back to this every year saying, oh, why didn't I do that a year ago? So that's what I started to do. And then somehow I got connected with Brian Gardner at Studio Press, and I don't remember how, but we got connected, and I was aware of Genesis, but hadn't used it much before. And he was, putting the bug in my ear to maybe do the themes in Genesis, as Genesis child themes.
That crafty Brian sneaking into everybody.
And when I kind of dug into it a little bit, I was like, yeah, totally, I'm going to do that. Why build my own framework, which I was in the process of doing, when there's this great framework that already exists? So I'm totally going down that road. But then I didn't know how to use Genesis, so there's a bit of a learning curve there. And so again, the themes kind of got put on the back burner, but they're not quite back to the front burner yet, but they're almost there. I've got 3 that I'm working on now, and they will all be Genesis. I really like the Genesis community. I mean, it's a sub WordPress community, but it's a lot of great people, and I just really enjoy. That's what I really have enjoyed about WordPress the last 6 months is just the community aspect of it, and the smaller feel of the wider web world, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to getting those released and just kind of focusing on WordPress.
Yeah.
Right now it's WordPress service, like service-based websites and stuff, but I would love to eventually make WordPress products.
And it's keeping the same focus. It'll still be for churches in that vertical.
The themes, with Lift themes, yes, that will be. I don't know. I'm working on one right now. It's not a church theme. There's not too much I can say about that one at the moment, but yeah, I never envisioned on having a theme shop. I don't think a theme shop is where I would like to go. Maybe, but I kind of see like plugins more what is currently interesting to me, but what I'm trying to say is I don't envision having a theme shop like Woo Themes or something. It'll be more I do some themes and I do some consulting and I do some plugins and kind of a mishmash because I do tend to get bored if I focus on any one thing for too long. So
yeah, you sound exactly like me. What are you doing to keep everything sort of in order? Do you walk around in some kind of happy chaos, just knowing that it's up in your head somewhere, and you kind of know where things are, or do you have some kind of system or approach that you wake up to every day that you're rolling with?
I don't have a system. I really need one. I do kind of do the happy chaos. Part of it is just personality. Part of me, I had a good friend who was a business coach for a while, asked me at one point, he was like, do you just like chaos? Because he's like, I'm telling you all these things to do that can organize everything, and you just don't do it. And I'm like, I think part of me does enjoy the chaos a little bit. I don't want to do the same thing every day from 8 to 5. I don't want to sit at the same desk. That's why I work from home. I work from Starbucks. I work a variety of places. I want that change and excitement. But at some point, there has to be some organization or things just don't get done. And I don't really have a system. I currently just kind of have priorities. Like my priority right now is client work is obviously the main thing because that's what pays the bills currently. WP Theory is the side project that is getting most of my attention, and then there's my themes. And you mentioned the podcasting, but that's a whole other world of things that.
Yeah, you just got this out-of-body experience that comes out at night and just takes off and does podcasts.
It's just that was a hobby and turned into a business, and it's a lot of fun, but it's not too much of a moneymaker at this point. So it's more of a, I guess I've never really considered it. It is totally a business. I mean, we're an LLC, we've got income, but it's still something that's really fun to me. Like I don't feel like I'm working when I'm doing the podcasting stuff. But it's a good chunk of my week. I guess I should actually figure that out because it's at least, it's at least a dozen hours a week, know. So
if you start engaging in time blocking, which is sort of kind of what I've been practicing for the last year, and you're setting out those priorities, but just simply on your calendar, versus just the to-do list, which looks like a never-ending sea of stuff to do. And you start to realize how much time and where that time is going. I think, though, that as an entrepreneur or the creative type, there is no pulling away from sort of the happy chaos. That's that is why we do what we do. That's how we are able to create so many different things.
Yeah.
It's also important because, like the two of us and like many listening is we're just launching things and trying it to see what really works.
Yeah.
And that's so super important.
That's something I haven't done a lot. I have a list of ideas, but I never launched them because I was always convinced they were going to fail, or I was afraid of failure or whatever. So more recently, I've been trying to just try something. I mean, what's the harm in trying something? Most of my side projects don't cost me money to launch and see. They just take some time. That's how I got into podcasting. I just tried it, and it worked. And I've really been enjoying that for the last year and a half. And WP Theory is the themes. It's just, I would encourage anyone to just try it.
Yeah. Recently just received an email from a listener who asked about that and how to overcome sort of the fear of stuff. And it's like, look, one, you will never extinguish your fear. Fear will follow you everywhere. If you're not afraid about what you're doing, you're probably just not either pushing yourself or you don't have a pulse, because
right.
As an entrepreneur running a business, there's always fear, right? Will I get a client next month? Will the other clients keep paying? Will we keep selling themes? That kind of thing. But at the same time, you can't let it stall you and stop you from launching and just trying it, because you have to launch a version 1. It's always going to suck. Version 2 will hopefully get better. Look at the Microsoft Surface. Version of Surface 3 came out yesterday. It looks pretty damn awesome, right? It's lighter than a MacBook Air. It's super powerful. The first one, everyone laughed at it, and it sucked, and it was heavy or whatever, but now it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't buy one, but it's still a pretty good product. Yeah. Let's move over to talk now about your podcasting stuff. What is it that's going on? You sort of built a network of other shows. How did you stumble upon that?
I guess it's been about a year and a half, so December of 2012, I was feeling really frustrated with myself for like constant ideas, but like half-done ideas. I just wanted to launch something. And the podcast was one of those ideas. And so kind of the same with WP Theory. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do this. So before like starting to work on the website or the logo, which would normally be the first thing I would do, I booked guests. I booked 5 guests for the next 5 weeks. And they were people that I respected and definitely didn't want to flake on. So that really gave me the pressure. Like I had to get the thing ready to go and before that first guest. So that was the only reason I think that actually launched, because I had that sort of self-imposed deadline. But I did it, and I really enjoyed it. And I met a couple friends, Tim Smith and Chris Enns, who both have podcasts, and we were kind of on each other's podcasts a little bit. And we did a podcast together that used to be called Too Lazy to Blog, and we were doing that together, and then late fall, we had the idea, we'd all kind of batted around the idea of launching a podcast network, and we decided, let's give this a shot together, let's try it and see. And I've never really done a business or a side project with anyone else before, and so out of that came Good Stuff, goodstuff.fm, and we ended up launching in April, and so far it's been great. I can't say how I feel like from now on anything I launch is going to be with other people, because it's so much easier when you have other people to help out and keep you going when you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to do this other thing is really shiny right now. I'm going to go do that. And we kind of all kept each other on track. And there's a lot of techie shows. I mean, it's definitely got that. It's kind of who we are. But the goal was to have a network that wasn't like some of the currently existing networks that were just very nerd geek focused. So we've started a few shows that I think, I really wanted to do a show that my wife would want to listen to, or my friends would want to listen to, people that have nothing to do with the web industry. And we've got a few like that, and hopefully we're going to, really focus on that and get more of those. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. The podcasting is, it's one of the most fun things I do, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a good time. Could you give some insight into the sort of the business model of that? Is it just an ad-based revenue stream right now?
Currently, it's all sponsor-based.
Cool.
We do. There are various levels of sponsorship, and there are various models of ads and sponsoring. We're doing a run of network sponsorship, so you can sponsor from anywhere from 1 week up to however long you want. But it's your ad read will be on all the shows across the network. I'm sure as we grow, I think we're up to, I don't even know, I think we have 12 shows now. I'm not quite sure. And new ones being pitched to us all the time. So as we grow, I'm sure like that whole structure might change or morph anyway. But yeah, it's just sponsorship based.
Nice.
There's some interesting membership model things I think could be done maybe, but yeah.
Nice. Want a WordPress Entrepreneur podcast on there?
Yes, we do. I want to start one, or I'd like to have one. So if you have one, we can talk after the show. So
awesome. That's great. Now, how did you guys come to an agreement on this? Did somebody have a bigger audience bringing it in, and they're sort of taking a bigger chunk of the pie? Anything interesting like that going on sort of who got the bigger contract in the network?
Not really. Tim, Chris, and I are co-partners, so we each own technically like 33% of the company, and we had a lot of discussions about how we were going to handle shows and new shows, and whether those shows would be owned by us or they'd be owned by the hosts, and how we would pay hosts, and there's a lot of stuff to figure out, and a lot more than if you're just doing it on your own. It's super easy. You get the money and you do the show. So,
right.
So there wasn't really like any of us having a larger share than another. We all kind of we're all equal in it. But there is definitely like a pay structure for shows on the network and new shows coming into the network and all that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, many hats, many lessons. I think we could continue for hours at these talks, but I think folks are going to take away some tremendous stuff from the interview about burning out, which is something that so few entrepreneurs really talk about.
Yeah.
So I thank you for sort of sharing that insight from your angle. And a lot of interesting stuff going your way, and I'm really excited to see how WP Theory does, and especially this network stuff. Not so much about your themes. No, I'm just kidding. But everything does sound pretty awesome, and I love how you're doing sort of all this stuff in motion to see what works. I think it's a great strategy to go about.
Cool.
Let's jump into the second segment of the show where I ask you what's in your toolbox. What piece of hardware or what app do you use on the daily to keep yourself either organized or keep the business going? Any kind of top secret app like an Evernote, but something that people might not know about?
I don't know of one that people wouldn't know about. I guess I could say like the first app I always install is Alfred app. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
absolutely.
It's sort of a launcher, and it's got some amazing features. I've written a workflow where I can literally type in one word for basically one key, generate a whole new like front end scaffold, and do a repo, pull down the repo, create the repo, do an initial commit, and ready to go with developing new. So there's amazing stuff with Alfred.
That is pretty crazy. I don't go that far, but I do love it for launching stuff.
I love automation.
Yeah, I usually load in Alfred, Caffeine, and Cinch, I believe it's called, which will snap Windows, like Windows 7.
Oh, what is Caffeine?
Caffeine just doesn't put your computer to sleep.
Oh, interesting.
So it just lets it run at full power. So
okay, cool.
I do that like if I'm running on battery and I want to export it an MP3 or something like that.
Okay, cool.
Make sure I'm getting all the power. Let's jump into the lightning round and ask you a series of quick questions, and you'll have a series of quick answers. What's the one plugin you cannot live without?
That would probably be Advanced Custom Fields, I would say.
A favorite WordPress or business book?
Oh man, I'm a big reader. That's like asking me to give you my favorite album. It's like I don't know how I could pick one. There's a book called Love is the Killer App by a guy named Tim Sanders. It's 10 or 15 years old now. I won't get into. It's an interesting title, so just look it up. It's a really good book.
Awesome. A quote that you live or run your business by?
Um, Probably. I would just say, man, that's tough. I don't know if I have an actual.
The
I
next
think
the
I
next
think
question is, what's the best business advice you've ever received? So it might be the same.
okay. Well, yeah, it probably would be the same. I would say, um, in the last year, I've kind of focused on this for myself, and that is just um, do the best you can and enjoy the ride. So,
Nice. What's the longest a client project has ever taken?
oh man, I'm in one of those right now, and
I thought
it's
you were getting yourself
approaching.
out.
Yeah, I am. I'm trying. I'm trying. There's still some, vestiges. I'm approaching 2 years. So.
Nice. If you had to switch to another CMS, what would it be? Probably Expression Engine.
Actually, no. I think if WordPress just disappeared from the market, I would probably roll my own. I mean, I would love to create a CMS, but I feel like WordPress is so good. I mean, there's really no point, So yeah, I'd probably take that as an opportunity to make my own.
Don't let your wife hear this.
Yeah.
Who should I interview next?
Who should you interview next? You should interview. I'm in Chattanooga. I just found out that these guys are also Chattonoogans. You should interview James Laws and Kevin Stover
Oh,
of
yeah.
WP Ninjas, Ninja Forms.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're some great guys, and we kind of interacted online, and I happened to find out we live in the same town. So how crazy is that? It's like
Well, imagine if you went to a WordCamp.
I know.
You would actually be connecting
All
with these
kinds of
folks.
people. Yeah, I know.
What's the one question that I didn't ask you that I should have? And I think it's who you play drums for.
Oh, okay. The band was called the Nate Curran Band. It's not you probably think I'm gonna say like some big famous band, which it wasn't, but it was my buddy's band, Nate Curran. You can check it out, natecurran.com. And um, uh, yeah, I was a part of that band before I had kids and had to kind of settle down a little bit. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Awesome stuff. Adam, well, thanks a lot. Adam's going to be sticking around for those of you who are Matt Report Pro listeners, and you'll find his pro segment over in the forums. He's going to stick around and give us some tidbits of information for running your business. If you want to support the Matt Report without ads, this is an ad-free podcast network, sir. Just you hear me. And this is a membership for folks who want to ask the questions about how do you run a WordPress business, how do you launch a business. I've got some fear and I'm stuck. Join the Matt Report Pro membership, ask the questions in the Pro forum, and get answers from people just like you and I on this call, and those of you who are listening. Find out more at mattreport.com/join. Adam, man, thanks a lot for doing this. Where can folks find you on the web to say thanks?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I would say probably just Twitter/AV Clark. It's kind of the hub of all the many things right now.
Awesome. Everybody go check that out. Adam, thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.